Welcome to another session of the Awarelogue Lecture Forum on Pakistani Foreign Policy, Looking Ahead. The 14th of August 2022 marks the 75th anniversary of the independence of Pakistan, undoubtedly a milestone in the journey of any country. To better understand this anniversary and the journey this country has taken, we are joined today by a scholar who has dedicated her life to the dissemination of greater awareness of her homeland. She is the founder and executive director of the Islamabad Institute of Conflict Resolution. She is a former visiting member of the faculty of the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies at the National University of Modern Languages and School of Politics and IR. She is a regular contributor to national and international newspapers. We are indeed honored to have with us today Sabah Aslam. Thank you so much, Sabah, for joining us and for taking time to be with us on this particular episode of the Awarelogue Lecture Forum. We're indeed honored to have you. Sabah, if we were to invite you first to give us a general overview of Pakistani foreign policy, how it has evolved. 7.5 decades is a long period of time. There have been ups, there have been downs. How would you reflect on this period from independence onwards?
Thank you, George, for having me. And obviously, it is a great achievement for the nation of Pakistan that we are celebrating our 75th independence anniversary and relations with Sri Lanka and other bilateral countries. As far as the foreign policy of Pakistan is concerned, I'll just start with the overview of that, like how we started and then where it is going right now. During the independence years and all that, in the very early years, it was preference was set by the leader, our leader of the nation, Qaid Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and he said that we, as a nation, we're gonna have very friendly and cordial relation with the states, by regional states and the neighboring countries and all that, and we won't be going into the internal affairs. We won't be interfering in any internal matters of the neighboring states or any other states, and a policy of non-alignment. But then eventually the guiding principles was designed over the period of time, and we had like the protection of freedom and sovereignty in it. And then we had support for the self-determination for the countries who are fighting for their right to self-determination, like the people of Palestine and Kashmir. Then we added on colloidal relationships with the Muslim states, because being a Muslim state, we are we got this independence on the very narrative of Islam and all that. So as a prime Muslim state, we would like to strengthen the relationship with the other Muslim states to establish a Muslim bloc. Then it was be a part of the international organization. It was also a tenet, or you can say a guiding principle for the foreign policy of Pakistan. Then it was like non-interference in the internal affairs of any state, non-alignment. And then the seventh principle was of nuclear non-proliferation, that we as a state, nuclear state, we won't be sharing any nuclear, you can say, designs with any non-nuclear state or something. Then there was the implementation of the UN Charter. Being the member of the UN Charter since our independence, we are to observe and we are to adhere the UN principles and UN charters and resolutions and all that, and we're going to support that. So these were some guiding principles of the foreign policy of Pakistan. Then we had like some other, you can say, challenges, or you can say phases. If we start with the phases of the foreign policy of Pakistan, there are 7 phases since our independence. First phase was of 1947 to 1953, and it was of neutrality. So being a newly independent state, we opt for neutrality and we won't be a part of any bloc or something. So for the roughly 8 to 10 years, we maintained this neutrality policy. Then there was phase 2 of 1954 to 1962. In these all years, what we did, we opted to be part of West. So we developed an alliance with the West. We supported US in that case. And this was a miscalculation at the hands of the policymakers, because our neutrality policy was going very well. But somehow in 54 era and 63 era, due to the pressure, and we were always being looking towards India, that what India is going to do, or what is their next step is, because the foreign policy of Pakistan, unfortunately, is acentric or India centric, you can say. In India centric policy, when we were too much focused on this eastern neighbor, and we designed our policies on all that. So in order to gain maximum support of the West, we joined West in 54 to 62 era, which gave us a very bad time in that. Then there's a phase 3 of 63 to 71. And it was a transition period in which we were looking for new ways, and in which we were looking for other regional blocs to be aligned with. Then there was a phase of 1972 to 79, and it was again of non-alignment, because in all these previous decades, we learned that with alignment, we got nothing. Because as far as the foreign policy of a state is concerned, it is always the principle and preferences of some goals to attain some national interest. So we have defined our national interests, that these are the national interests. We have to have a very stable, peaceful and internal environment, and then peaceful and stable relation with the external countries, to have economic stability, to have integrity, to have all these things. So in 72, we opted for non-alignment, and we left CETO and CENTO, which we joined to support the West. And then came the Zia era, 80 to 90. In that era, what we did, we again did this alignment thing, and we joined hand with the West. We supported them to fight against the Soviets in the Afghanistan. And without calculating the overall national, you can say, the goals and all that, without taking care of all that, we joined West in the support of this Afghan war against the Soviets, in which we lost a very good regional partner. Though we don't have a very good relationship earlier with the Soviet Union or something, but we further added fuel to the fire with this. Then came the era of 1991 to 2000, and it was a post-Cold War era, and in which we were again redefining our regional, you can say, pays or something. And in that era, we was again calculating that whether we went wrong or we were on the right path. So in that era, we faced, or you can say, there was fault lines, internally fault lines, which were exploited by the West then. Because West do not want any country to be like, especially a nuclear state. They want to control the assets, and they want to control the internal politics, or they want to control the internal environment to manipulate things according to them. So West always, and is now even in this very current scenario, they do not you can say, bar themselves from interfering in the internal affairs of Pakistan. Though we have clearly said that we are not going to interfere in the internal matters of any state, whether like it is Saudi Arabia or Iran or any other regional country. Even the Saudis wanted to help us with them in like fighting war against the Yemenis or the Iranis, and we refused it, because we do not want a mess at our home as well. Because like being a Muslim state, we can't go to that edge. But West want to somehow control the internal politics and the policies, because like if we go through the geographical position of Pakistan, and you are well aware of it, that it is at the very crossroad of three regions: Central Asia, Middle East, and Asia. So being economically stable, independent, Pakistan can be a very good source, or you can say a very good source for the Muslim countries to manipulate, and you can say design the Islamic policy against the sovereign Islamophobia and all that. So West never wanted this, because again, West is very much pro-India, and they want to strengthen their regional partner by suppressing all the other regional, South Asian regional states, whether it is China, whether it is Pakistan, whether it is Sri Lanka. What Sri Lanka is going through right now, it is something very much, you can say, very much related to Pakistan right now. So they have been already interplaying with all these things, and they time and again they come up with the security challenges, because like if you are not security wise, you are not stable, you can't go into the details, and you can't go for the economic you can say development and all these things, because like with prosperity and economic investment and all that, prosperity comes, and if prosperity is there, you become a regional power. So the West never wanted this, because like they are scared that if Pakistan is stable, then there is a possibility that the Islamic bloc got stable and they raised against the West. They start challenging West, because like Pakistan is the only Islamic Muslim nuclear state, and then Pakistan is seeing, or you can say always witnessed, or is always viewed by the Islamic states as a strong Muslim country. So they never wanted this. We, in all these years, we face the challenges of security, whether it is terrorism or internal terrorism or external terrorism. We were blamed of supporting terrorism. Then there comes FATF. Then there comes like the CPAC, which was an opportunity for Pakistan to expand economically, and we develop the regional economic corridors with other regional states. But America, I clearly say this, that America never wanted this. America wanted to control this very region, to counter the influence of China and Russia. They want to control and manipulate the strategies, because like they want to secure Israel as much as they can. Because like with Israel, we do not recognize Israel as a state, because like they are occupiers and they are occupying the Palestinian lands. And we in the foreign policy clearly said that we are going to support this right to self-determination, whether it is Palestine or Kashmir. So again, like there is like the geopolitics and all that always and is affecting the foreign policy of Pakistan. Another major challenge to the foreign policy of Pakistan is the leadership. We had always a leadership, you can say, crisis in Pakistan. Whenever there is a leader who can drive the things in the right way, there comes a coup. If there is not a coup, then there is like an external intervention in our internal politics, the way we are facing right now. So like without like strong leadership, or without a proper, you can say, a vision of this, you can't run a state. And foreign policy of Pakistan is always a victim of all these things, like whether it is internal politics or external politics, whether you go for war against terrorism as a frontline partner with US, or whether you are going to support Taliban. So we have always in a confusing situation when it comes to the state thing. Again, if you are going to work on the foreign policy, and because with foreign policy, it means like strong bilateral relationships, and how you can secure these relationships with the positivity and with the peace you can say peacetime relationships and all that. We have been supporting the Sri Lankans, we have been supporting the other regional countries, and nobody or the international players already and are always ignoring that. Nobody pointed out that Pakistan is doing a good job. Rather, even if we have been doing a lot in Afghanistan, supporting the development and all these things, but even the Afghan people, they say that Pakistan is supporting the Taliban against our civil leadership and all that, and Pakistan is supporting terrorism and all that. Because when you do not have a proper plan to execute, when you do not have proper leaders, or you do not have a strong diplomatic, you can say, system, and you can't institutionalize your foreign policy, you can't get more. What India is getting, or how India is getting strong day by day, is because they have institutionalized their foreign policy. However, it is very unfortunate at the part of other South Asian regional countries, like whether it is Sri Lanka, or whether it is Pakistan, Bhutan, or Bangladesh, we are struggling for us institutionalized foreign policy to work on that. Now, in this very decade, or in the coming years, the main focusing point for the foreign policy relationship with the China, because we do not want to you can say offend China. China is always our friend, and being like a very trustworthy friend, China has invested a lot. It was in the hard times when there was no foreign direct investments or loans given to Pakistan. China was the one who came up and they invested in Pakistan, whether it is in the mode of CPEC, because like they do have their own interest, but they are at least easing the pain of Pakistani people. Then relationship with the US in amid like the Sino-US confrontation, economic wars, and all these things? How are you gonna balance that? Because like leadership, like whosoever are in the power corridor, they want to have a strong relationship with the US. It is again very unfortunate, because we have to have a very balanced approach on that, and we shouldn't be going again into the alignment thing and all that. But let's see how we gonna design that, the siding with US or China, or we being neutral. Then again, there is an important factor in the region, and this is Afghanistan. We can't ignore Afghanistan, and how are we going to deal with Afghanistan in the coming days, or in this Afghan struggle for the international recognition as a state. So it again will play you can say, a very crucial role in the foreign policy of Pakistan, and again with the security policy of Pakistan. Then managing the relationship with India, because like India, what India have done in the last 2 to 3 years, it went off the limits and all that. And with the 5th August 2019 abrogation of Article 370 and 15A, and you can say merging Kashmir and internationally recognized disputed territory into their own territory, is a very worrisome factor for Pakistan. So like whether we are going to ignore it, or whether we can deal or negotiate with India on that, to reverse at least on this stance, and then we go ahead with the India in like trade relationship or something like this, or how are we gonna negotiate it? It is again a very challenging situation for Pakistan. Then comes Saudi Arabia and Iran, because like being a Muslim state, and being a Muslim state of mixed minorities, whether it is Sunni, Shia, Christians, Hindus, and all that. And then we have two strong, you can say, friends, or you can say two strong blocs, the Saudis and Iranians. So there is a very, you can say, a very tricky for Pakistan to handle this balance, to create a balance between these two strategic partners. Though with Iran, we haven't very good friendly relationship, but we are not at the verge of animosity or something. We are maintaining a very, like you can say, up and down relationship with the Iranians. But with the Saudis, we have a very good friendly relationship. But again, it comes with the Saudi national interest, which we shouldn't be mixing with our national interest. So it is time for the Pakistani leadership to draw lines, and they should identify their key national interests and how we're going to attain that. Because like for Pakistan right now, stability matters a lot, whether it is internal stability or stability at the borders. We are not in a state to, you can say, go for a war. And then we have to see into the internal matters, how India is exploiting, or how US is exploiting, or how Israelis are exploiting the Balochistan card. Because like Balochistan is very much crucial and important in the security and foreign policy of Pakistan. Balochi terrorists or insurgents are getting, you can say, fundings, and they are getting support from the external players to destabilize this very part of Pakistan, to curb, or you can say curtail, the development projects that are coming in a phase of CPEC and all that. So these are the things that are problem for Pakistan. And we hope that with the stable political system, which is unfortunately we do not see in the coming 6 months. So in all this challenging environment, we have to cope up on all these things, how we're gonna design it. So this is the overview of the foreign policy of Pakistan, or the internal situation of Pakistan. And I'm open for any questions and answers you are having. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sabah, for giving us a very comprehensive overview there. But I think one of the most important lessons we take out of what you were sharing with us was that Pakistan has reflected on the past. From what you explained to us just now, you gave us a better comprehension of where things went wrong. It hasn't been a fairy tale from beginning to end. It hasn't been a smooth journey. There have been ups, there have been downs. And you very rightly talked about decisions that were taken, changes that had to be made, reversal of certain policy, adoption of new policy going forward, all of that extremely important to reflect on at a milestone. This is where milestones might be just another anniversary, but it's also another opportunity for us to look back at what has been and strategize for the future. I mean, Sabah, when you talked about Afghanistan, for example, if we start there, Pakistan has a massive border with Pakistan, with Afghanistan. Now, when you look at that border, the porous nature of the border, the fact that if we go back to the 1970s, from 1979 onwards, Pakistan has faced lots of issues. I mean, at the beginning of 1979, for example, the Americans imposed economic sanctions on Pakistan, which were reversed at the end of the year when it came to the entry of the Soviet Union into Afghanistan. So there itself, we saw a massive reversal of American policy towards Pakistan. Do you feel, when you look at Pakistani foreign policy, that a majority of attention or focus of Pakistan is still on the Afghan matter? I mean, if you want to call it that. With regard to the stability of Afghanistan or the vulnerability of Afghanistan or the challenges within Afghanistan, outside intervention into Afghanistan, is this taking up a major part of Pakistan's domestic policy, especially along the border, but very much in terms of explaining Pakistan's position overseas? No doubt there is the Indian factor. That is something that goes without saying. But do you feel that that the whole concept of Afghanistan and the presence of Afghanistan really takes up a massive component of Pakistani foreign policy?
Yes, unfortunately and fortunately as well. We have a very long, almost plus 2,000 kilometers border, western border with Afghanistan, up from the north till the south. And most of the part of the, I guess like 70% or 75% part of that border is being fenced and barred now. And we are still working on this Pakistan-Iran border and Pakistan-Afghanistan border at the south, like in the south, like in the Balochistan area. But there is a very unfortunate thing for the state of Pakistan, and it is like the families on the both side of the border, they are Pashtun families. And in some areas, there is a free trade movement, because like the traders, they come in the morning and they go back in the night and they do the business and all these things, because like the majority of the like the maximum you can say the economy of Balochistan is like working on this border trade. The maximum of the northern areas of the Pakistan and Afghanistan is working on this border trade. Like this is the backbone of their internal economy. So with this fencing and all that, we are facing too much problems and pressure from the both sides, because like there are families who are living on the both sides of the border. This is issue A. And we are still working on this. And this is sometimes come up with the security threats to the state of Pakistan as well. Then as far as the relationship with the Taliban is concerned, even the Americans, they are in negotiations with the Taliban, because like the Americans don't want to leave Afghanistan, whether they have withdrawn all their forces, but they are willing to come back in the face or in the gaze of humanitarian assistance and all that, because they don't want to leave Afghanistan unattended because of Russia and China. Again, I'm quoting this, because like if Afghanistan is stable, the whole of the Asian region would be very stable, and it would be in a capacity to challenge the West then. Because like if you see, even Afghanistan is blessed with a very good geographic position, though it is a landlocked country, but it is again connecting to like you can say the Central Asia, Eastern Europe, South Asia, then Middle East, and then the whole region. So like ignoring Afghanistan or leaving Afghanistan is not in the best, you can say, benefit of America, or it won't be best serving the national interest of America. I won't say, I would like, I quote it like this then. As far as Pakistan is concerned, we are facing a very much huge pressure because of this recognition issue. The Taliban want Pakistan to recognize Afghanistan, the state of Islamic Emirates of Afghanistan. But due to our own complications and due to our own concerns, we can't initiate this thing. we are waiting for a strong power or the regional players to start recognition patterns, and then we might be the second or third to recognize, but we don't want to be the first to recognize the Afghan state. And this is the very point where the relationship with the Afghan administration right now, we are having very ups and downs right now with the Afghan current leadership, because they want Pakistan to recognize Afghanistan. Secondly, with the change in the leadership and all that, we changed our strategies as well vis-a-vis Afghanistan. Earlier, there was a very, you can say, a smooth strategy when it comes to the border or cross-border movements or the entry arrivals and all that, and we were doing and facilitating it in the face, or like with this simple paper like the gate pass and all that. But with the like of Taliban in power, we changed our policy and we introduced the e-visa or visa. And we are not facilitating anymore the gate pass because of our own security concerns, because we do not know whether this guy who is crossing the border in the being a businessman is like a terrorist or what, or he is from any other terrorist group, because like there are so many terrorist groups active in Afghanistan right now. Their sleeper cells are there. So we don't want any problem in the internal security environment of Pakistan, though now we are again like facing the challenge of TTP. We are facing the challenge of ISIS. We are facing the challenge of Daesh and all these small terrorist groups, and Baloch insurgents and Baloch terrorist groups, and all have their bases in Afghanistan and Iran. So this is very challenging for us. And with Afghanistan, we are like to this very day, we are not on any page or any concrete step that what we're gonna do. So we have started some small projects to give the Afghans an impression that we are not against their leadership right now, but we have our own internal matters and concerns. So we will be handling things later on. What we have done in this recent time, especially in the recent month, that we started a railway project with the Afghan, and we have started it from the Torkham border, and it will go from Torkham to Jalalabad and Kabul, and then it will be connecting with the Mizar Sharif, and then automatically up to Uzbekistan. So from Uzbekistan till Mizar Sharif and Kabul, the railway track is ready. And now we are going to develop this railway track from Torkham border to Kabul, up till Kabul. So we started program on these things for the economic, you can say, connectivity and movements and development, like you can say the trade and all that. So this is a very good initiative, or a soft initiative that we have taken. Though we haven't invested a lot, whether it is in the development sector, in the trade sector, or in any other sector or assistance sector in Afghanistan right now, because like we are facing our internal problems. So we are not in a capacity to support or go to an like the threshold where we can challenge, or we can, you can say, counter the Indian influence in Afghanistan, because India is doing a lot, and India want to raise this leadership against, or you can say want to have this western border against Pakistan. They want to use it against Pakistan. So obviously we will be working on it, but it is a very, as I told you earlier as well, Afghanistan issue is a very big challenge for the foreign policy of Pakistan right now, because if we recognize them, we will be again in the gray list, and we might be having more pressure in the like from the IMF and FATF, because like right now our economy is struggling and we want more and more loans and all that. We want foreign trade and all that. But might be if we recognize them, we get more pressure. So these are the things that we are in a very much like in a huge confusion vis-a-vis Afghanistan, whether what we do or what we opt.
But you mentioned a very important point. There are 2 points I'd bring out there, because you talked about the connectivity is improving, which is really good for the domestic economies on both sides. But also you mentioned a scenario in which you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you recognize the Taliban, you're going to be facing more issues you mentioned internationally. But lots of those international stakeholders are also reaching out to try to engage with the Taliban. So this is a very unfortunate catch that several countries, Pakistan, Sri Lanka included, find ourselves in on many occasions. You mentioned the Soviet Union in the past, how Pakistan opted to join CETO, and this was a policy decision that was taken shortly after independence, etc. Now, when you look at Russia and Pakistan today, now Pakistan has become a full member of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization as well. Have you seen a further development of the relationship between Pakistan and Russia?
Yes, the relationship with Pakistan and Russia are improving day by day. And we are working on the economic relationships. We are working on the military relationships, like the security relationships. And we are working on this, like the, you can say, the internal bilateral relationship, because we have learned that it was a mistake to be aligned with the West at that time. And now we want to cushion up it, and we want to bridge the gap between the Russia and Pakistan through our like soft policy measures. And recently, or in the past, in the near past, we started joint military exercises with the Russian armed forces and counter-terrorism exercises and all that under the umbrella of SCO, which turned very positive in Pakistan. People in Pakistan, due to the lack of awareness, like they do not know much about the relationship or the dynamics of the Russia-Pakistan relationship, and they are not keen to invest or go there for business or something. But now the state of Russia and Pakistan both, they are mobilizing their people. They are working on expanding and strengthening the people-to-people contact, the business-to-business, media-to-media, and all that. So now we are working on these lines. But as far of now, we have more close relationship of the military leaderships than the political leaderships in Russia. So I guess like side by side, in a parallel way, if we are working on this security relationship or military relationship, we should be having a very good, you can say, political relationship or diplomatic relationship as well. Because like, as you know, that the Imran Khan visited Russia, and he met with Putin and all that. It was a very, you can say, a very surprising move for the people of Pakistan, because so far, like till now, we are thinking that we part with the Americans in Afghanistan to fight against Soviets. So Soviets are our enemy. So this myth is somewhere like weakened, and now we are working on all these things. So I guess like with Russia, we will be developing a good economic relationship as well, because like with the development of this railway track of Afghanistan, and if we start the economic connectivity, so our goods that are reaching, if we export something to Russia and we export it through the maritime routes, it reached to Russia in, I guess, like almost 70 days. But if we do it through the land connectivity and this land route that we are developing, and this only passage which is left is from Torkham to Kabul. Rest, the whole railway track from Mizar Sharif and Kabul till Russia is already there, because Russia has very good relationship with the Central Asian states, and they are already doing this land route trade and all this. So then the goods of Pakistan will be reaching to Russia in 4 days and East Europe. So it would be very, you can say, a beneficial position for both the states, Russia and Pakistan. So I guess, and I wish like this develop, because I as a you can say analyst or as a practitioner, I support a relationship with Russia and China more than relationship with America, because like with America, we do not have any geographical connectivity with any, you can say, sort of a confident relationship. Because like with America, we have always already we always go through this marriage and divorce and all these things. And one of my very good mentor, he's a mentor, he once said that with the USA, Pakistan is having a relationship of marriage, divorce, and rapes. So whenever America want to intervene in the internal matters, America intervened. So we have to, I guess we have to stop this now. As a state, we should take the responsibility, and we should come up with our own state narrative.
You brought in China at that point too, and actually when you look at the map of Pakistan and where Pakistan sits, you very rightly said there's Central Asia, there's West Asia, there's South Asia. Pakistan is at a very important juncture on the global map in this part of the world. When you look at the BRI and the role of Pakistan, Pakistan is undoubtedly an important node in the BRI. How do you see Gwadar port into the future? How do you see CPEC into the future? What do you see as potential opportunities opening up, given the fact that there are uncertainties within the country on your borders? But how do you see the development, infrastructure, investment component going forward, sir?
George, if you see BRI, the CPEC is the flagship project of BRI. And if the CPEC is successful, it means the BRI as a whole, as a project, is successful. Because like Gwadar port, number one, is a deep sea port. Gwadar port is the port where the international focus is too much, because the Iranians, they don't want Gwadar port to be developed, and they are doing a lot with the help of Indians to counter this. Because if the Gwadar port is operationalized, you can say the market or the business of Chabahar port would go down, because Chabahar port is not a deep sea port, but like the Gwadar port is a deep sea port, and it have more attraction. And when it comes to China, if we develop Gwadar port and we start this business through the maritime, and then we use this, you can say, road and rail network that China is developing in Pakistan in the name of CPEC, it goes from south to north. And in days or in hours, you can say, the products or the trade consignments will be reaching to the, you can say, China and the Central Asian states. And again, if you use it otherwise, the trade consignments from China or Central Asia or Eastern Europe will be reaching to the Gwadar port in days. So it comes up with maximum economic stability for Pakistan, because these roads and rail networks that will be using for CPEC would not be using especially for CPEC, but it will increase the domestic trade as well. It will increase the domestic connectivity and tourism as well. Because like the challenge, or you can say, we as a Pakistani, we were unfortunate that we were unable to develop a good infrastructure. So without a good infrastructure, you can't promote the domestic trade, you can't promote the tourism and all that. But with this road and rail network, you will be having internal economy, and you will be having a very good, stable, you can say, environment. Secondly, with the development of this project, CPEC project, what we will be attracting is foreign direct investment. And what we will be getting out of it is, like, might be, if we utilize it in a proper way, as it is supposed to be, we can pay off our debts, and we become an economic independent state, as India is. And when you are an economic independent state, you opt your policies according to your own strength. Then you do not need a dictation, or you do not need a foreign aid for this. So I guess, like, on CPEC, we have to work on all these security challenges that are right now posing to CPEC and the completion of this project. And once it is done, it is a good situation for not only China but Pakistan. And I guess, like, more benefit or more advantage is for Pakistan rather than China. Absolutely. Because like then we will be attracting more regional players. And again, as I told you, that we are working on Afghanistan for this. So if we have Afghanistan on our board, if we have like a relationship with the other states, even Iran, and our goods go to Iran and then Turkey and then Europe. So like it would be very beneficial for the state of Pakistan, and it will come up with more economic stability.
Sabah, on a final note, Sabah, I mean, we're talking about countries around the world, but I just want to come to our South Asian region. It was 6 years ago that Pakistan was due to host the SAARC summit in Islamabad. That was in 2016. Unfortunately, that did not get underway. Yes. But the very next year, years after that, we saw Pakistan and India coming together as full members in the SCO. Do you see, going forward into the future, do you see a certain degree of reconciliation between the two countries, especially given the fact that Pakistan and India are both members in the SCO. You're working with China and Russia, you're working with Central Asian countries. We're talking about the Asian century. We're talking about how Asia is going to rise. Everybody has to contribute towards that. Do you see India and Pakistan having a brighter future, especially due to the SCO? Maybe SARC might not be taking off the way we intended it to, but do you think there is going to be a bigger impact through the SCO?
This is my personal opinion. This is not a state opinion. As far as SCO is concerned, and as far as Pakistan and India's full membership of SCO is concerned, and the relationship between Pakistan and India is concerned, I guess Pakistan as a state won't be compromising Kashmir at any cost. If India is, you can say, really willing to develop a regional bloc, trade bloc, and if India is really wanted to reconciliate on certain things, then I guess India has to revisit its stance on Kashmir. And until and unless the Kashmir issue is resolved, we won't be engaging with India at any point, whether it is economic or regional or anything, or the bilateral relationship in that matter. We won't be going any step forward, because like it's been more than like 7 decades that the people of Kashmir, they are suffering at the hands of this barbaric regime, and this especially RSS led narrative and all that. And what India is doing in Kashmir is a very, you can say, a very some factor for the people of Pakistan as well, because like we consider Kashmiris as our brethren, and we won't be allowing anyone to go to, you can say, this extrajudicial killings or mass graves or rapes and all these things. So we won't be supporting this barbarism of Indian state in, or the atrocities that are being done by the Indian armed forces in Kashmir. Like you can just imagine the state of, you can say, the psychological state of Kashmir, where there is like the people, 1.2 million people, and they are having an army of 9 lakh. So it means like it is a ratio of 3 to 1. So you can't breathe openly. So it is a open, you can say, an open prison. So like until and unless India do not revisit its stance on Kashmir, I guess like the state of Pakistan won't be going any further with the Indian state, whether it is part of SCO or UN. We won't be taking any pressure from the any state, whether it is China or Russia or in matter in case America, until and unless they make India as well to come to the negotiation tables and negotiate on the Kashmir thing. This is my personal opinion.
Thank you, well noted. Thank you so much, Sabah, once again, for taking your time, for sharing your expertise, for helping us understand Pakistani foreign policy that much better, looking at the journey ahead, looking at the journey Pakistan has taken in the last 7.5 decades, where the country is right now, and what opportunity the country has going forward. Also discussing some of the biggest challenges that Pakistan is going to be facing in the years ahead. So thank you once again for taking and giving us your time and sharing your views with us. It is duly noted. It was indeed fascinating to see the trajectory of the country over each decade, how things changed, what some of the main obstacles were, and how measures have been taken right now in order to address some of those. And what lessons can others learn? This is something Pakistan is looking retrospectively within in terms of what you just shared with us, but other countries can also do the same. Certainly from a Sri Lankan perspective, there is a lot that we can take out of it in understanding some of the cycles that other countries have gone through and what lessons we should learn from them in the process. So thank you once again, Sabah, for your time and for joining us on this episode of the Awarelogue Lecture Forum, where we focused on the 75th anniversary of independence of Pakistan, a neighboring country in South Asia, an important milestone in that country's journey. And also, this happens to be yet another event in the journey that Awarelogue is taking in discussing regional issues, international issues under the framework of international relations and the impact it is having on all of our lives. So thank you once again for joining us on this particular episode. Join us again next time on the Awarelogue Lecture Forum when we focus on yet another aspect of international relations and its related spheres.